LOLers, let's talk about how to read a food label, okay? Go to your kitchen, grab something, doesn't matter what, okay? We're just gonna go through it together. Anything except for water that doesn't give us enough information. But grab that food label and let's look at it together. Okay, so the first thing that we look at, and I get a lot of different answers when I ask that question, but the first thing that we could look at is really the serving size. All right, how much are we talking about here before we get into the details? In my case, I have 1 cup. Okay, so what defines a serving size for you? Identify that, then we go to the calories, okay? So in my case, I've got 1 cup at 30 calories. How many calories are in your serving? Don't worry so much about the calories from fat yet. We'll come back to that. Let's zip all the way down to carbohydrates, total carbohydrate. The total carbohydrate includes fiber and it includes sugar. So don't worry about looking at those individually yet. First, just state the total carbohydrate. I've got about 1 gram. Identify your total carbohydrate amount. Then let's look at protein. So we've got protein, I've got 1 gram, so I've got a 1-to-1 ratio. Remember all the ratio conversation we had before? Let's look at total carbohydrate next to total protein. Great, now you have that information. Now go back, find out what the carb is made out of. Is it out of fiber? How much fiber do you have? If you have more than 5 grams of fiber, we can actually start looking at subtracting half of those grams from the total carbohydrate amount in order to get your net carbs. That's going to be most relevant to those of you on insulin. All right, so if you don't worry about it. If you've got fiber, you got that as part of your total carbohydrate, and now you've got sugar. Of course, added sugar is a big deal. We'll get to that in the ingredient list, okay? But note how much sugar is in there. Is it enough to make you uncomfortable? Is it more than 6 grams? We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But right now, you've got the serving size, the calories, and the carb to protein ratio. Let's go back now and look at fat. Fat for this 1 cup is 2.5 grams. How much fat is in your serving size? The fat is going to, per gram, is going to be 9 calories, whereas per gram of carb or per gram of protein are 4 calories each. So the fat calories can add up. So you'll note that there. And then in some cases, your food label will go into more detail about what kind of fat. Is it monounsaturated? Is it saturated? Is it trans fatty acids? Is it polyunsaturated fat? Is it monounsaturated fat? So all of those might be described there too. Typically, we're looking at reducing our saturated fat intake, unless it's maybe from more of our medium chain, but also reducing our intake or eliminating our intake, of course, of trans fats. So anyway, check out those. That's the bulk of the label. From there, you can see the percentages of some of the nutrients. I'm not as worried about you even noticing them right now. This is based on a standardized diet. I'm working with you on your individualized diet, so you don't need to notice what percentage of each nutrient is represented here in that serving size. From there, though, let's go to the ingredients. The first ingredient is going to be the item in that product that is represented at the greatest amount, okay, from a calorie standpoint. So in my case, I've got almond milk, and that just is simply describing the almonds and the water. From there, though, there's not a lot else in here that has calories, but I would look at the first 4 ingredients because they are the ones that are going to be represented the most. So you're looking at almond milk, I'm looking at salt, I've got locust bean gum, sunflower lecithin, and then the list goes on. What are the first 4 ingredients? Is sugar represented in the first 4 ingredients? If it is, we're probably going to look to transition to a different food. But anyway, we'll get into that as we communicate individually. That's how to read a food label in a nutshell. Check out the handout for another description to go along with what we just did. Thanks for trying.